Tonight, dramatic demonstrations spilling out into the streets. Thousands of people marching across Israel, demanding the government bring the hostages still held by Hamas home. What this uproar means for those critical ceasefire negotiations as the White House preps a take-it-or-leave-it plan. Plus, the late-breaking news just into us literally minutes ago on the DOJ now indicting Hamas leaders. We're going to explain the impact of that in just a minute. Plus, also breaking in just the last couple of minutes, former President Trump entering a new not guilty plea after that new election interference indictment. What comes next in one of Mr. Trump's most serious legal cases? Plus, the mysterious fake ads popping up in Philly claiming Kamala Harris is the official candidate of the Philadelphia Eagles. More on the collision of football season, election season, and open season for misinformation. And an exclusive interview raising new questions about the biggest YouTube star in the world and his reality show's life-changing money. The allegations of a dark side of Mr. Beast's YouTube empire in tonight's original. Then, with some of the biggest names in tennis out of the U.S. Open, it's one American carrying the hopes and dreams of fans everywhere. Why some of them say Big Foe is their best shot in decades for a Grand Slam. Later in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and we are coming on the air tonight with grief and anger pushing hundreds of thousands of Israelis out into the streets to protests. Look at this. I want to show you some of the scenes out of Tel Aviv from just the last few hours. You have thousands of people now gathering out, most of them demanding that the prime minister do whatever he needs to do to get those roughly 100 remaining hostages back home. The demonstrations, the diplomacy, coming after 6 hostages, including a dual Israeli-American citizen, were found executed in a Hamas tunnel in Gaza over the weekend, including, of course, Hirsch Goldberg, Poland, that Israeli-American. Many of those protesters we just show you say these hostages may still be alive, arguing could have been, saying their government's been slow-walking a deal to free them, that things could have been different. Netanyahu, the prime minister, met with the families of those killed hostages earlier today, minus the widow of one victim, who refused a meeting, which gives you an indication of just how angry some of these families and many Israelis are feeling right now. Back here at home in the U.S., it's kind of a two-pronged push. You've got President Biden getting ready to offer both the Israeli government and Hamas militants a take-it-or-leave-it ceasefire deal, while the DOJ, the Department of Justice, in literally the last maybe 8 to 10 minutes here, is dropping a new indictment, charging Hamas leaders federally for their role in the October 7th attacks. Of course, there's questions of what kind of impact that'll actually have. We've got our teams covering all of it. NBC's Kelly O'Donnell posted up near the White House. But I want to start with Raf Sanchez, who's live for us in Tel Aviv. And can you help us understand, Raf, what an indictment by the American Justice Department against Hamas leaders could actually practically functionally do on the ground?
It's a really good question, Hallie. As you mentioned, this indictment dropped just in the last 10 minutes or so our teams are still working through it. But I can tell you what jumped out at me just looking at the first page of it. The very first name on that indictment is Ismail Haniyeh. He was the political leader of Hamas. And I say he was, Hallie, because he was assassinated by Israel in Iran a couple of months ago. So that gives you some sense of what this indictment means in real terms. The first person on it is dead already. The second person on it is Yahya Sinwar, the leader of Hamas in Gaza. He is the ultimate decision maker on Hamas's side in this conflict. He is in a tunnel somewhere underneath Gaza. Israel's most elite commandos, all of its intelligence assets, everything it has to bring to bear is searching for this man. He is Israel's #1 most wanted. And so the fact that he is on an American federal indictment, frankly, is unlikely to make much difference one way or another to this all-out Israeli hunt to find Sinwar dead or alive. Now, it may be that there are details in this indictment that shed new light on the treatment, the torture, the killing of Americans on October 7th and since then. But I think functionally it is unlikely that this means very much for the men who have been indicted.
So let me ask you about the reality on the ground there where you are in Tel Aviv. It is now after midnight in Israel, night number 3 of those huge demonstrations. The protesters are showing no indication that they're going to move on. Is there any indication that the prime minister will move politically, or does it just seem like status quo on that front?
You know, Hallie, you and I have talked about this. Prime Minister Netanyahu is a stubborn, defiant leader, and nothing we have seen today indicates that he is planning to back down. We were on the streets a little earlier, the scene you're looking at was outside the Israeli Defense Ministry. It's less than a mile from here. And we spoke to a lot of those protesters who you're seeing, and we heard heartbreak, we heard anger, but we heard deep, deep frustration that they do not think that Netanyahu is listening. We spoke to one woman whose cousin is being held hostage in Gaza, and she told us it is just unbelievable that 11 months into this, the Israeli people are having to plead with their government to bring the hostages home. So there is no indication at this point that Netanyahu is backing down from his key demand, which is keeping Israeli troops on the Egypt-Gaza border, that critical area known as the Philadelphia corridor. Hallie.
Talk more about that corridor, the Philadelphia corridor, what it means and why it is so strategically important.
So it's about 9 miles wide. It runs along the Egypt-Gaza border. You can see it on your screen there. And Israel says that the many, many weapons that Hamas has used, both on October 7th and over the course of the war since, were smuggled in tunnels underneath that corridor. So Israel says it is absolutely critical that its forces remain there to prevent Hamas from rearming. Hamas is saying there is not going to be a deal if Israeli troops remain on that corridor. And it isn't just Hamas. Egypt, who is one of the key mediators in this process, a key American partner, is saying that Netanyahu is blowing up the chances of a ceasefire deal by insisting on keeping Israeli troops there. The U.S. is saying at this point, everybody needs to show more flexibility, but it is just not clear how you get through this zero-sum situation of Israel saying they're staying on that corridor and Hamas saying they need to go. Hallie.
Raf Sanchez live for us tonight in Tel Aviv. Raf, thank you. Kelly, I want to bring you in now to the conversation here. And can we go back to that indictment here again? I know it's just dropped. Our teams are still going through it. Is it more of a symbolic document or a pragmatic one?
Well, it certainly has a symbolic component because using the levers of U.S. government power to make a criminal argument against leaders of Hamas for, in part, conspiring to kill U.S. citizens is symbolic in some ways, but it is a tool. It is a tool to say the U.S. government is seeking to hold them accountable and also to drive the message to the families that are involved, to the allies in Israel, that the U.S. takes this seriously and that these actions will provoke a response from the U.S. government. So you can call it in some ways symbolic, but the pragmatism of it is to show that the government will respond. We understand it's about 38 to 40 pages. There are numerous counts, and we'll learn more about the particulars, but also for some of the specific individuals who were named in the indictment, and Raf talked about that a bit. Part of what the criminal liability does is if there is ever a point down the line where they have another chapter of life or leadership or what have you, it can curtail their travel, their ability to engage with others around the world in the realm of sanctions and just the international norms. Hamas, of course, is a terrorist organization. It has a political component, and it leads politically within Gaza. And so having this U.S. indictment may incite some to believe that this is the U.S. against Hamas, and it may also be a way of pointing out support for Israel indirectly by taking this action. Hallie?
So, Kelly, we talked about the sort of take it or leave it ceasefire push that the Biden administration is trying to make. When we talk about the Biden administration, we meet, of course, the president, but also, interestingly, the vice president, because she now seems to be taking on a more muscular role on foreign policy, at least more muscular than, for example, in the first couple years of the administration. Fair read? Talk to us about her role in this.
Well, she has to have a more front and center role. As a sitting vice president, not the candidate, the role is to support the president's vision. And now as the candidate and certainly the White House is giving her room in ways we had not seen before to put into words her own views on some of this. Although there's not really any daylight between Kamala Harris and President Joe Biden on these matters, she is able to have more of a voice in this. And that is both necessary and notable, because as a candidate, she will have to articulate her own policy, her own vision should she win in November, and what goes forward from that, and also to continue to work in support of the president. And on issues as big and as complex as this, perhaps more hands on deck can arguably be helpful It can also mean there will be areas where any slight change in wording or tone or emphasis can draw people to scrutinize. Is there any break from the Biden agenda? Is there any break from Biden policy? And we don't see that broadly, but we certainly know that Kamala Harris recognizes in an electoral sense and in a leadership sense, she has to be talking about these issues.
Kelly O'Donnell live for us outside the White House tonight. A lot of developments in the last little bit. Kelly, thank you. And that includes some other breaking news just into us now. Former President Trump filing a notice to file a not guilty plea in this new election interference indictment against him. This new plea coming just a week after the special counsel filed an indictment, a superseding indictment against Mr. Trump for his attempt to overturn the 2020 election. Let me go to Ryan Riley. Unpack all the legal speak, right, and explain what this means functionally and technically, because it doesn't really change anything about the case itself, right? So why does it matter?
Yeah, I mean, functionally, it means that Donald Trump doesn't have to physically go to court and everything that comes with that. It means that we don't have to do this whole Secret Service protection. So, you know, this is essentially him entering an indication that he intends to plead not guilty. A lot of the action that we saw in this case recently came on Friday when both sides were sort of laying out what they see as the future of this case. And there's two very, very varying perspectives, of course. You have the Trump folks and the Trump team that say this case, they don't, in their mind, isn't going to go to trial ever, right? Because they don't think these charges are legitimate. They think that the Supreme Court's immunity decision really gives them a lot of room to basically argue that this case shouldn't have been brought in the first place to get these charges dismissed. And so they don't even speculate about when a theoretical trial would happen. On the other hand, you have Jack Smith's team essentially, now that they've missed the window for a pre-election trial, you have essentially them saying, we'll leave it up to the judge. And on Thursday, Judge Chutkan is gonna come in to court, and that's when you're going to see a lot of these arguments about what sort of the new steps are for this case now that it's been indicted by a brand new grand jury. Hallie.
Okay, Ryan Riley, thank you very much. On the other side of the political aisle, you've got Democrats looking to capitalize on an issue that they see as potentially hugely mobilizing just about 60-plus days from now on Election Day. And that is this issue of reproductive rights. You see it on that bus tour. That bus, of course, from Kamala Harris's campaign. They are launching this huge bus trip starting in Donald Trump's backyard in Palm Beach, trying to build some momentum on the issue of abortion rights. Watch this.
Florida is such an epicenter of Donald Trump and what has happened here, and it is time to respond to him by saying we're going to elect Harris Walz, and we're also going to, in Florida, make clear that we're not going to subject women to extreme abortion bans.
That comes as former President Trump is trying to clear up what his position actually is on abortion rights, saying he's going to vote against a Florida amendment that would enshrine abortion rights in the state constitution after facing some backlash from his own party for suggesting he'd support it. Marissa Parra is traveling with the Harris campaign, which has made its way, I believe, to Boynton Beach, if that is right so far. Marissa, I know the bus tour is continuing on. They're starting it 10 miles from Mar-a-Lago, which feels like a very deliberate and very intentional move. Democrats are clearly looking to bring this issue to Donald Trump. They sense weakness on this front.
This was indeed a very conscious choice by the campaign here, Hallie, and that bus is already on its way to Jacksonville, Florida, which is the second stop here. But being in the former president's backyard is actually something almost every speaker mentioned at least once. It was part of their media blitz when they were announcing that they were going to be doing this. So it was a very conscious choice here for a couple of reasons. One, I want to point out that we heard the same from protesters outside saying, you're in Trump country. Well, the people here who organized this know exactly that, Hallie, and so they're really trying to show that, one, they have confidence that they can actually make some inroads here in November, and I'll kind of explain why they feel that in just a moment. But I also want to point out Amendment 4. This is one of the roughly dozen states in the country that abortion rights are on the November ballot. This is Amendment 4, and voters, if 60% of them or more decide on this, they can vote to pass, essentially overturn the current 6-week ban, Hallie, and turn it into roughly, protect it until roughly viability, which is about 24 weeks, Hallie. So among the speakers we heard from today who were advocating for people to show up at the ballot and, of course, vote yes on 4 was Anya Cook. This is a reproductive rights storyteller. We also heard her at the DNC, and part of her testimony has been describing what she went through, and you're going to hear from her in just a moment. I'll explain on the other side.
I was told in the actual emergency room by the doctor that he could not admit me into the hospital because of the law. He adamantly, blatantly just said to me that he would get arrested, he would get fined, the hospital would get in trouble, and he can lose his license, and he couldn't risk that to save my life.
So part of the messaging here, Hallie, that we heard from not just politicians, but people like Anya Cook, and what she was saying herself is that what she went through, the horrors that she went through, she's saying that the former president is to blame for exactly that, Hallie, because of the change that happened, the overturn of Roe v. Wade, and subsequently the change with Florida state abortion laws here, Hallie.
A lot of focus on Florida, Marissa, but also some focus on a different swing state. That is Pennsylvania, because we're learning late today that is where Vice President Harris is going to be hunkering down for some debate prep, right, with that big face-off just 1 week away.
Correct. And I will point out, there's been a lot of focus and talk about Pennsylvania. You look at the key strategy states, there's about 7 of them that we've been talking about. Steve Kornacki has been talking about. Florida's not one of them. Florida's actually not considered a swing state anymore. And I thought that was really interesting to bring up to the campaign team, to bring up with Senator Klobuchar and ask, well, with all the focus on all these other states that are not Florida, then why choose Florida for the first 2 stops of this bus tour? And I heard directly from the campaign team themselves. They were saying, listen, we saw a lot of momentum when Harris announced that she was throwing her hat in the ring for November. In fact, Florida is the state that saw the, quote, largest surge in campaign volunteer signups of any other state, Hallie. So what I've been hearing from the team, and we'll find out if this is true, but the campaign team and as well as Democrats here in Florida are feeling, don't sleep on Florida. Florida is not out of play for Democrats quite yet. And I'll just point out one more thing, Hallie, that has some people here feeling optimistic when it comes to not just Amendment 4, but also Democrats' ability to win in November. We do know that recent polling suggests that Republican women between the ages of 18 and 49 do have softer views on abortion and abortion rights than people outside of that demographic, Hallie.
Marissa Parra covered it all for us there in Florida. Marissa, thank you. So as we look at the state of play here, the state of the race, let's bring in somebody who knows it well, Steve Kornacki. And it's interesting because there's a former Obama advisor who described this race right now as a dogfight. We've been saying it for months. It is extremely competitive. It is very close. And there's kind of a question mark over how much we can extrapolate from polling. Right, Steve? Talk us through it.
Yeah, exactly, Hallie. I mean, you just have to think back to the last 2 presidential elections to keep that cautionary note in mind. But here's where the average of the national polls stands coming out of Labor Day. 3-point lead for Kamala Harris over Trump. Democrats obviously happy to have that advantage, also happy that it is better than it was when Joe Biden was the candidate. He actually trailed Trump basically all year. Republicans, though, can look at this and say, well, been there, done that. Trump down Labor Day nationally? Well, we saw that in 2016. Trump trailed Clinton by about 5 points at this point. Trump won, of course, in 2016. In 2020, 4 years ago, Trump trailed by close to 10 points against Joe Biden at this time. Did not come back to win, but came back to make it razor thin in the Electoral College. So, and that becomes the question, of course, is the state-by-state battle you were just talking about there, and we'll call it up on the screen. And, yep, Florida painted red right now. Obviously, if Democrats were ever able to pull off a surprise there, it would shake everything up. There are some states, if Republicans could ever pull off a surprise, it would shake things up. But sticking with the core 7 battlegrounds, at least for right now, the simplest path when you look at the polling, they're tight in every state, but the best numbers for Harris tend to be in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. We have a lot of question marks about recently, but her clearest path would be simply to keep those states. They all went for Biden in 2020, to keep them blue. If she can do that, she's at exactly 270, the number she needs to win. Now, the Trump folks look at these 3 states, and the one they see particular opportunity in is Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania with 19 electoral votes. And this becomes Trump's most direct path. If Trump were able to flip Pennsylvania, you see what that would do to Harris's number. Now she'd need to get at least 2 from this set of Sunbelt states, but it would also open up this path for Trump. Pennsylvania, then North Carolina, which he already won in 2020. He's just trying to protect a state that he already won. If he were to get that, and then Georgia. Georgia was less than 12,000 votes in 2020. It went for Trump in 2016. If he can claw Georgia back, along with holding on to North Carolina and flipping Pennsylvania, then he's the one, Hallie, who lands at exactly 270.
So what's so interesting here, Steve, is as we talk about rounding the corner, it's now after Labor Day. You've been through these presidential cycles. I've been through them. This is like the home stretch, right? It's not the final sprint. That's going to come in October, but we are getting into crunch time, basically. Worth remembering, though, that starting Friday, ballots are going out, right? Like, we talk about voting being on Election Day. That's not actually the case, because starting this week and then throughout the month, as you've explained to us, people are going to start casting their ballots already.
That's right. The first state where you're going to see that is North Carolina. On Friday, the mail ballots, the vote by mail ballots go out there. Now, in 2020, almost 1/5 of all the votes in North Carolina were cast by mail. That was the COVID year. The mail numbers were high in a lot of states. More typically, it's going to be about 5 to 10%. But that's nothing to sniff at, obviously, in a state as important as North Carolina. And by the end of the month, you're going to have a mail voting underway in Pennsylvania. You're going to have it underway in Michigan. Another place you're going to have it underway by the end of the month. You see this one here, Nebraska. Remember, there's that second congressional district around Omaha. They give them out by district. The Democrats won them then. There are combinations where that could be decisive.
Steve Kornacki, lots to follow. I guess we'll see you now and every day until Election Day. So thank you for being around. Appreciate you.
Thanks.
Let's take you to New York now, where a former top aide to the New York governor and her husband is now pleading not guilty after they were arrested in just the last couple of hours for allegedly serving as a secret agent to the Chinese government. The claim, it's a major scheme, allegedly, to make millions of dollars. You're looking at some video of Linda's son getting arrested right here. She's facing new accusations of using her high-ranking government jobs to illegally help the Chinese government. What did she get out of it? Well, allegedly a whole lot of cash, tickets to things, jobs for her family, even salted ducks sent to her parents' home. The arrest comes after the FBI searched her $3.5 million house on Long Island. You can see both her and her husband walking out of court right here. We should note the governor's office tells NBC News son was hired more than a decade ago and fired in 2023 for misconduct. Danny Savalos is joining us, breaking this down for us here tonight. Okay, she's pleading not guilty. What happens from here, and what seems like the most significant or salient details of this case so far to you?
Well, all these cases always involve some little piece of evidence that acts as a hook. And here it's the salted ducks. The salted ducks will become the star of the case, just like something like gold bars or something that people can really wrap their heads around, because the allegations are that salted ducks were delivered to their parents' home. That's something that jurors are going to think is clumsy. It's obvious. Government prosecutors are going to point to their wealth, the alleged benefits they got, and the fact that this came not just by a private citizen allegedly acting as an agent of a foreign government, but somebody in government itself, in state government, using her political access to provide those benefits allegedly to the Chinese government. So that's going to be all pieces of evidence that the government puts up, and they're going to be damning.
What about her defense, then? What is that going to look like?
As is often the case, and this is a version of a kind of quid pro quo, the government's going to allege that the defendants received goodies and in return gave goodies back to the Chinese government or its political entity. And so, as is often the case, most of the time the defense will center around, hey, we happen to receive these benefits, and we happen to do something that benefited the Chinese government, but they weren't related. That was based on my good faith belief that this meeting shouldn't happen with Singapore officials, and this meeting should happen with Chinese government officials, or that the governor should tweet out this message of thanks to the Chinese government. That was my own independent thought, not because I was getting anything of benefit from the Chinese government. The problem with these defenses is that the government usually has plenty of evidence from which a jury can infer that there was a quid pro quo, a this for that.
Danny Savalos, thank you very much for breaking that down. More to watch on that front. Overseas, we're just learning that Russian President Vladimir Putin is back in Russia tonight after a visit to neighboring Mongolia, where he got a red carpet welcome as Mongolia ignored calls to arrest Putin for alleged war crimes related to the war in Ukraine. Look at this. Putin's getting out of his limo. He's got this red carpet. He's got this nice handshake. Soldiers on horseback. Look at that. A child bringing him flowers. This is Putin's first trip to a member nation of the International Criminal Court since the ICC issued that arrest warrant in March 2023. So remember, that's why this is a big deal. Mongolia is an ICC nation, and the ICC has accused Putin of being responsible for abducting children from Ukraine. Now, ICC member countries are required. They are supposed to have to detain suspects if an arrest warrant is issued. Josh Letterman is joining us now. So, Josh, it clearly seems like under the rules of the ICC, Mongolia had a responsibility to arrest Putin. Instead, they quite literally rolled out the red carpet for him. Explain the dynamics there.
Well, clearly they wanted to have him there, Hallie, and it is true that legally Mongolia is obligated, because they are a signatory to the Rome Statute, which kind of codifies the ICC, to arrest him if he steps foot on their soil. But the fact of the matter is there's basically no enforcement mechanism for that. There's not like some ICC police that can come in and arrest the Mongolian leader or anybody else for failure to comply with that. And as far as why Mongolia might want to do this, officially the Russians and the Mongolians are calling this simply a matter of trying to improve their bilateral relations. They are neighbors after all, but there's something in this for President Putin as well, because as you point out, the countries that he's been able to travel to essentially since the beginning of this war have been North Korea, China. This gives him one more opportunity to demonstrate on a global stage that he is still welcome in foreign nations and able to essentially travel freely as he pleases.
How did Ukraine respond to this visit to Mongolia by Putin?
Yeah, well, so Ukraine had actually warned the Mongolians ahead of this potential visit that they should not allow Putin there, that they should arrest him if he steps foot in their country. That obviously didn't happen. And now in a new interview with our colleague Richard Engel, President Zelensky is deploring this move by the Mongolians to not only allow Putin into their country, but to roll out the red carpet for him. And they are saying that this is a clear violation of international law that is only going to further legitimize what he says are war crimes that he says that Russia is carrying out against children and others in Ukraine, Hallie.
All this, well, this is happening as Putin was getting the VIP treatment there in Mongolia. We're learning more about these Russian missiles that hit a military training facility and a hospital in Ukraine, right? One of the biggest attacks since the war started. What happened there?
Well, according to President Zelensky, the death toll in that attack has now risen to at least 51, some 200 people apparently injured. This was a military facility, so it could be claimed that this was a legitimate target as far as an ongoing war. But it is true, this is one of the most deadly strikes so far in the war. And apparently the folks who were in that military college, as well as a nearby hospital, did not have enough warning to be able to get to shelters in time. And that is one of the reasons the death toll is climbing just as high as it is, Hallie.
Josh Letterman, live for us overseas tonight. Josh, thank you. We've got a lot more to get to here on the show, including coming up when a nationalist mob in Turkey yelled at 2 U.S. Marines during the dramatic assault you're looking at here. That's coming up. Plus, fake information both online and in real life, too. Look at these made-up Eagles ads for Kamala Harris flying in Philly. We're going to tell you more about the fallout coming up. So to the collision now of football season, election season, and open season on misinformation. And for that, we got to take you to a place that you know I know well, and that is the great city of Philadelphia. Because people there, look at this, they're seeing these ads. This is Kamala Harris in an Eagles helmet. So the question is, okay, did the Eagles endorse her? Is Kamala Harris really the official candidate for the Philly Eagles? The answer is no. No, that is not actually the case. The team says these ads aren't real. They're made up. They're counterfeit, basically. So how did this happen? And what does this mean now for this question of misinformation, not just in the key state of Pennsylvania, but for other key swing states moving forward? Tremaine Lee reports.
Tonight, ads plastered at bus stops across the city of brotherly love, showing Kamala Harris as the, quote, official candidate of the Philadelphia Eagles, pulled down. It's because they're fake, according to the team. Just the latest deception giving voters whiplash. A caricature of the vice president in an Eagles helmet, clutching a football, and in bold lettering, Kamala. The Eagles flew into action, posting on X that they were working to remove the, quote, counterfeit political ads. Adding to the confusion, the bogus ads did list a link to the official, nonpartisan website of the Philadelphia Eagles that encourages voter registration. A spokesperson for the Harris campaign told NBC News the campaign did not purchase these ads. Intersection Media, the company that runs and manages the advertisements on these bus shelters, says they were, quote, vandalized, and that occasionally people find a way to unlock the ad box.
We backing Camilla anyway, you know what I mean? I'm an Eagles fan. Yeah.
President Joe Biden scored 471,000 more votes than Donald Trump in 2020 here on the streets of Philly, where people seem to take the trickery in stride.
I don't see it problematic, but why would someone waste their time on putting Eagles logo on something that wasn't given permission?
But of course, Eagles Nation goes way beyond the borders of Philly into the purple suburbs and red rural towns of battleground Pennsylvania. Someone here papered over a fake ad with printouts of the Eagles' response. Just over 2 months to the election, voters are getting bombarded with fake information online and now in real life. Last month, former President Trump shared AI-generated images on Truth Social showing one real and multiple fake Swifties for Trump. Taylor Swift has yet to endorse a candidate. Many athletes historically have been shy about getting into politics. As Michael Jordan famously quipped, Republicans buy sneakers too, later saying he never thought of himself as an activist.
What's up, everybody? Stephen Curry here.
But other players have taken a stand this cycle, with Steph Curry and Coach Steve Kerr at the DNC. UFC President Dana White, a prominent Trump supporter, was at the RNC, but some feel election talk should stay on the sidelines.
I don't feel like there should be much politics in sports, you know what I mean?
Tremaine is joining us now from Philadelphia. And the hard thing about anything similar to this, Tremaine, right, regardless of, you know, the candidate or the format, somebody's walking by a bus stop and sees an ad for something that looks real. How are they supposed to know it's not? I mean, is this now a moment where folks are just going to need to be Googling, like, everything to find out if it's legit or not? It's a difficult moment, it seems like, for some folks.
Hallie, I'll tell you what, for those of us who engage with political material routinely, it can be difficult to decipher what is real and what is fiction, let alone now you have AI, you have social media, and now you have ads like this confusing people in spaces where they would expect truthful information. But again, let's not forget how folks have been targeted in recent news cycles, revealing just how, I don't want to say gullible folks are, but how easy it is to sway us. And so folks need not just disconnect with all the swirl around them. That may be objectively dangerous for society. If people just, you know, check out and say, there's too much going on, I can't figure out truth from fiction, you know, what do we do?
Tremaine there, live in front of the link. I promise I will not ask you about the Eagles season opener, but we'll get into that at a later date. Tremaine, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, look at this pretty disturbing scene caught on camera in Turkey. It shows a couple of U.S. Marines getting assaulted by apparently a nationalist mob. One attacker even put a bag over the head of one of the Marines. Others were chanting, "Yankee, go home." Now, the Navy says some other Marines who happened to be nearby intervened. Nobody was hurt, and local officials say 15 people have been detained. Number 2, officials say at least 3 firefighters have been hurt by the Coffee Pot Canyon fire in California. Their conditions aren't clear at the moment. The fire has grown to more than 12,000 acres. It's threatening something like 130 buildings, only about 17% contained. Number 3, at least 1 person is dead, 2 others missing after a boat crash. You see some of the aftermath here in Connecticut. Crews found the boat underwater. It was damaged. It apparently hit a jetty. 5 other people were on the boat. They're in the hospital. We don't know yet how they're doing. Number 4, pro-Palestinian protests starting back up today at Columbia University as students return to class. You can see some of the protests here. There's one statue on campus covered in red paint. If you remember, it was Columbia at the end of the spring semester that saw a bunch of these demonstrations, not just at Columbia, but at college campuses coast to coast. Student organizers now back on campus say they will not stop until Columbia cuts ties with companies linked to Israel. Number 5, officials in Tennessee arresting a reality show star from the show 1,000-Pound Sisters at a local zoo. Police say somebody had allegedly been bitten by a camel. It's not clear exactly who, but police then say they smelled something suspicious, coming from Amy Slayton Halterman's car. She is now facing several charges, including drug possession and child endangerment. She did not immediately respond to NBC's request for comment. Lots more to come on the show, including those serious accusations against YouTube's biggest name, a name I bet you've heard of. What another creator says happened to her after appearing on Mr. Beast's show, and what she wants contestants to know now. It's a story you will only see on NBC next. Plus, which city has hit at least 100 degrees for 100 days in a row? NBC News covers hundreds of stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Western Bureau, police in Washington say a suspect's in custody after a shooting spree along a busy highway. At least 4 people were hurt in 5 separate shootings. Some of those victims now in serious condition, according to a local hospital. No word yet on a possible motive. Out of our Western Bureau, there's one city that's hit 100 straight days of 100-degree temperatures. Phoenix. You're the lucky one, I guess, unlucky. So it started hitting triple digits there in late May. It's stuck every day since then, beating a 30-year record. Meteorologists say the streak of desert heat usually stops because of rain, but they haven't had much, so they don't think this is going to break anytime soon. There's an excessive heat warning in the forecast for the rest of the week. And out of our Northeast Bureau, DraftKings getting fined $19,000 in Connecticut after an online slot machine, after 20,000 wins, produced, guess how many, or spins, how many wins? So 20,000 spins, 0 wins. Nobody won after 20,000 turns. So gaming officials were like, okay. They say they found a computer glitch that rendered it incapable of anybody actually winning on this machine. DraftKings had to return like $25,000 back to players. The spokesperson says the problem was limited to this game's launch in Connecticut. So tonight's Original Now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tonight we're looking at the scrutiny that the world's biggest YouTube star is facing over safety conditions at his latest reality competition. We're talking about Jimmy Donaldson, but you probably know him as Mr. Beast. You know, the guy with 312 million subscribers, super duper popular. He's 26, he's got all these videos. Some of them feature these stunts, these big giveaways, big money, right? 7 figures, millions of dollars. But there's some folks sounding the alarm after what they describe as a chaotic shoot. In a TV and streaming exclusive, our Chloe Malas speaks with another YouTube star who's looking to expose what's really behind the scenes of Mr. Beast's empire.
So this is your new studio?
Rosanna Pansino, one of YouTube's original and most influential content creators, the host of a popular baking show.
And now we're going to do this to the rest of our donuts.
Is now speaking out against the platform's biggest star.
Jimmy is not the same person that he is on camera as he is off camera.
Pansino met Mr. Beast, whose real name is Jimmy Donaldson, about 5 years ago.
I have a heart for philanthropy and giving back, and that's how he presented himself, as a good guy who loves to do charity and likes to make big, fun, silly YouTube videos.
And whichever one of these 456 people survives the longest wins 456 grand.
Pansino even went into business with Donaldson, though the ventures failed. But she says everything changed after she appeared on Mr. Beast's 2021 reality competition show, The Creator Games.
And perfect hiding place.
She was unfairly edited, she says, to make it seem like she performed worse than she had.
Yeah, you can be like cyberbullied if I say anything that's not positive about Mr. Beast.
And when Pansino made that accusation on the pop culture podcast Just Trish last October, she says the backlash from some of Mr. Beast's fans was frightening.
I received very serious, scary death threats.
That sounds terrifying.
Yeah, I've been online for a long time, so a little cyberbullying, the negative comments, I'm used to handling that mentally, but not at this magnitude. I was so scared. I thought I was having a heart attack. The death threats were very specific. They were very targeted.
In spite of that, in July, Pansino went public again, this time on TikTok.
I wanted to keep you guys updated on what I've been hearing about Mr. Beast's Beast Games.
She says that she's created a safe space for contestants to share their experience on Donaldson's new reality competition series. When Amazon MGM announced that series, the Beast Games was billed as the biggest reality competition series ever. The cash prize, $5 million.
I feel like I've become an advocate. I can't in good conscience do nothing.
How many people have reached out to you so far, roughly?
Right now, it's a little over 200.
Could you tell me about some of the allegations?
They didn't have access to their medication. In a lot of these situations, it was life-saving medication.
William, who asked us to call him only by his first name because he fears online backlash, showed up to what he thought was the Beast Games. But it turned out to be a multi-day casting call for the show in Las Vegas.
One girl in our group, she did need her epilepsy medication, and she did not get it. She had a hard time fighting for it.
And that's not all.
We had finally gotten access to food after about 10 hours, and I witnessed a male just collapse right in front of me, and he was convulsing.
NBC News spoke to 5 other former contestants who asked to remain anonymous because they feared retaliation. They said there wasn't enough food and that they witnessed medics responding to a contestant who appeared to pass out. In August, the New York Times reported that more than a dozen unnamed participants told them that they had not received adequate food or medical care, and that some competitors had suffered injuries from the physical challenges, with some even leaving the competition arena on stretchers.
I think that the injuries are just appalling because they're injuries that could easily be avoided.
What types of injuries are you hearing about?
I heard people got trampled.
During that first game, I got trampled. Every line had a group of people at the back that were just getting trampled, and I watched a woman get knocked out cold.
Several contestants were hospitalized during the Beast Games promo shoot, according to NBC's Las Vegas affiliate KSNV, which cited multiple anonymous contestants. For his part, Williams says he would still compete again, and that he also saw Donaldson upset, trying to get contestants food and water.
He did try to do what he can. I do feel people are painting it that he did this maliciously, but at the end of the day, I feel everybody was just woefully unprepared.
In a statement to NBC News, a spokesperson for Mr. Beast said that the promo shoot involving over 2,000 participants was, quote, unfortunately complicated by a global technology outage, extreme weather, and other unexpected logistical and communications issues, which we are currently reviewing. The spokesperson added that virtually all of those invited to the filming of the Beast Games in Toronto enthusiastically accepted our invitation, and that they have taken steps to ensure that we learn from this experience. Amazon MGM Studios did not respond to a request for comment.
What would you say to people who might say, well, it sounds like that, business deal fell apart. You're doing this to elevate your own profile.
I understand that perspective. I really do. But I really encourage those people to look at the bigger picture, because what he's doing is not happening in a vacuum. It's happening to a ton of people.
For the people watching who say that those that competed in the Beast Games, they were paid and they signed contracts and they knew that there were risks involved.
On any TV show, especially a competition show, there's always risk that somebody's going to accidentally get hurt. I think that the difference here is an abuse of power. I think it's wrong to dangle this huge prize money, a $5 million carrot, in front of people's faces who really need it and take advantage. I don't think it's okay to actually shoot shows that are like the Hunger Games.
Chloe Malas is joining us now. And Chloe, has Mr. Beast's team reached out to contestants directly at all? Do we know?
Hey there, Hallie. Well, I spoke to Mr. Beast's spokesperson who said that they actually have communicated directly with 97% of those 2,000 people who attended that shoot in Las Vegas and that they've asked for feedback. The spokesperson also added that Jimmy Donaldson has been very philanthropic over the course of his career, including giving more than $5 million in supplies to Ukrainian refugees. They also talked about how he powered a rural Zambian village with solar energy. And, he's rebuilt 12 homes in South Africa for over 100 orphan children. So, look, Hallie, I mean, he has made a huge name for himself with these stunts and with these lavish giveaways and with his charitable giving. But these are some very serious allegations that these contestants, they felt comfortable speaking to NBC News, anonymously. They're afraid of public backlash. And obviously, Rosanna Pansino, she's a huge star. And for her to come out and do this exclusive interview with us, it took her a lot of courage as well. But again, Mr. Beast's team, they are denying these allegations.
Chloe Malas, thank you so much for bringing us that NBC News exclusive right here first on this show. Thanks, Chloe. Coming up.
Thank you.
Why teachers at one Virginia high school say a plan to scrap cell phones in classrooms cannot come soon enough. We'll tell you what change they're seeing in students and why. Coming up. With the school year really getting started this week in a lot of places around the country, more and more school districts are starting off the year with bans or some real restrictions on cell phones in class. Down in Virginia, schools there are starting up under an executive order from the governor that tells schools you got to come up with a plan to get phones out of class by next year. Our Kate Snow went down to Virginia to ask teachers how they're feeling about this. Here's the spoiler. They're telling her it cannot come soon enough. Watch.
At high schools across the country this fall, when the bell rings to end class, it's not the noisy, chaotic scene we may remember.
I'll watch everyone kind of silently stand beyond their phone, immediately have their AirPods in, and just kind of walk out quietly.
We sat down with Hallie, instructional lead and advanced placement coordinator at Yorktown High School in Arlington, Virginia, along with English teacher Troy Olson and social studies teachers Ryan Zito and Elizabeth Kadat.
How many of you have had to talk to students every single day about a device issue?
Because sometimes they don't even register that they have it out. It's just so instinctual.
Do you get tired of having to watch for phones?
Yeah, it's not what we went to school for. It's not what I want to do. I want to teach.
How often do you see kids with their phones out?
Every day, constantly.
Every period?
Every period. It's half of your instructional time.
If I have to constantly remind you about your phone, that is breaking down my ability to connect with you.
What about earphones, AirPods?
They're just so easy.
One in, one's in the case.
What are they listening to? Music?
Even if they're not listening to anything, they don't realize that that comes across as rude or disrespectful.
A Pew Research survey last year found 72% of U.S. high school teachers say cell phone distraction is a major problem in the classroom. As of this fall, at least 11 states have moved to ban or restrict cell phone use in public school classrooms. Virginia is one of them. In Arlington, a new policy this fall says high school students cannot use phones during all instructional periods.
What do you think about high schoolers not being able to have their phone on during class?
Love it.
I mean, I think it's great.
I think it'd be difficult to enforce, but I think it would be helpful.
We need buy-in not just from teachers, but from the families as well.
They're all concerned about the long-term impact phones are having on learning.
If devices didn't exist and students were picking up books instead of Instagram reels, maybe they would be reading and building a level of vocabulary that we're not seeing when they walk into our environment.
We do kind of a brief survey of, on average, how much do we spend on our phone a day? And roughly our class average is about 7 hours.
In his 7 years of teaching, Mr. Olson says students' attention spans have changed.
They can't focus on something that isn't, 60 seconds or less. It's got to be fast and quick and punchy.
Many of them, I find in my AP classes, want to engage with the tasks that I'm giving them, but need so much more support to a degree that students in the past just didn't seem to need.
They do see positives of phones. Students socialize and find community on their devices, and ultimately, they're realistic.
Phones aren't going to go away. Finding ways to educate kids around proper use and responsible use may be better.
Is joining us now. And Kate, we're so glad to have you with us. Kate, we're glad to have you with us here. It's been so interesting to look at that and to listen to this conversation because you heard one of the teachers say it. She doesn't want to be the phone police. She didn't get into this job to be like sitting in the classroom telling people to put away their phones. Yeah. There is this question of enforcement, and there's this question, too, of what parents are going to do. Like, how do parents support this at home and how they feel about it?
Yeah, and you heard Ryan say we need family buy-in.
Yeah.
But what was interesting, Hallie, is all of them said to me, parents in general so far have been really supportive. So when they call a parent and say, your son's been or your daughter's been on their phone, I'm taking it away, the parents are like, oh my gosh, thank you for telling me. That's what they said they've generally experienced. As far as enforcement goes, it really is still going to be up to the teachers, at least where we were in Arlington, Virginia. They were saying to me, that's how it was last year, and now that they have this new policy, they're the ones that are going to have to enforce. So if they see someone with a phone during instructional period, they're going to have to call the person out, take the phone away.
Yeah.
They can elevate it to an administrator, but there are only 6 administrators in that high school for 2,300 students. So there's not always going to be a principal around to help. So they're concerned that it is still going to kind of fall on the teachers to be, as you said, the phone police.
Yeah. Kate Snow, it is definitely an issue that is not going away anytime soon because these things. I mean, kids are glued to them, and frankly, so are their adults. Yeah, Kate Snow, thank you very much. Really appreciate that. Of course, you can see much more of Kate every day on NBC News Daily alongside Zincle Esamaw. That's every day on the NBC News Network where you are from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern and right here on NBC News Now. When we come back, a big day, a huge day for U.S. men and women at the U.S. Open today. We'll talk through the big wins and what's ahead tonight when we take you live to Flushing Meadows right after the break. So, U.S. Open. The American men are trying to win a Grand Slam tournament for the first time in more than 20 years. And guess what? They've got a shot. Taylor Fritz is in the semis this afternoon after that upset win. So all eyes are on tonight when Frances Tiafoe, a.k.a. Big Foe, hits the court to try to join him there. Over on the women's side, American Emma Navarro claimed her spot in the singles semi, winning a dramatic match just a couple days after knocking out defending champ Coco Gauff. All of this has been playing out in front of huge crowds. Last week saw an average of around 75,000 fans every day. According to the New York Times, that is a record. Yasmin Vasugian is joining us now. She is fitted up. Oh, where's your hat? You had a hat all day on today. Yeah,
I got it.
Your U.S. Open hat.
I know.
You had a drink.
Give me my hat. I got
Excuse
it.
me, it's 5 p.m., girlfriend. What are you doing?
I
Let's
got
do
the
it.
drink, girl. Don't you worry about it. I got the hat.
Love
I got
you.
The drink.
Love this gig for you. Love everything about it.
I was going to bring my props in later, but of course you're blowing my spot up a little early, so I'll bring it in now.
I just was watching you. I saw you in a show earlier, and I was like, oh, my God, when she gets to 6 p.m., we're going to be living our absolute best life. Because part of what's so interesting, Yasmin, is like all these upsets. Like it's a super unpredictable tournament, and people are super tuning into it, right?
Yeah. By the way, you got to be 21 and older to drink this. It is after 5, everybody. That is why I'm sipping it, and I will finish this one. The other one, FYI, I did not finish. It was just a prop for the show a little bit earlier, but now I'm going to finish this one. Okay, let's talk upsets, because I was here, Hal, for all of it. What an incredibly exciting day, right? We had Taylor Fritz, 4 sets, winning, incredible. 2 tiebreakers, by the way, as well. A nail-biter to the very end. The energy inside the stadium was electric, to say the least. Emma Navarro winning in 2 sets. Hal, the second set, it was touch and go for a moment. There's a lot of folks that were worried about whether or not it was going to go into a third set. She pulled it out. So you got 2 Americans already going into the semis. Emma, by the way, has never been in a semifinal. Taylor Fritz has never been in a semifinal as well. And then you talk about Big Foe, right? That's my man. That's the guy that I'm really rooting for tonight. That's going to be the big match in center court. Behind me, he's got the story of all stories, right? Grew up in a tennis center. His dad was a custodian, grew up playing alongside his brother, learning to play tennis. And then here he is at the U.S. Open. He's only been to 1 semi before. This could be the second one. He's up against somewhat of a veteran, 33 years of age, who's been to 3 semis before, but not since 2019. So he's got age on his side, but it's all time will tell as we wait for tonight's match.
We talked about, I mean, you are one of the huge, one single person of the thousands and thousands of people that are showing up at Flushing Meadows. I was looking behind you. Can this facility, can these grounds handle it? That many people?
I mean, I have to tell you, it is incredibly crowded, averaging over 70,000 people every single day, more so than we've ever seen at the U.S. Open up until now. And obviously, as the day has gone on, right, it's kind of back to school, unofficial end of summer. Folks are back to school, back to work today, but certainly showing up for this night match. I spoke to some people in the area behind me in front of center court. Let's take a listen to some of what they had to say.
It's tremendous. Everybody's going to this. This is a big summer thing to do.
I think there's just an increased interest in tennis. I think people started to play tennis. More people started to play during the pandemic. You hate to see some people lose, but you're like, this is the next generation coming up. So it's very exciting.
And it's all about the next generation, right? Because Djokovic, Alcaraz, Gauff, Osaka, they're all out. So it really is anyone's title to take, Hal.
Super interesting. You're making me get psyched about watching tennis, Yasmin. Are you officially off the clock? Like, is this it? Are we your last live shot for the night? Go enjoy.
I'm off, love. I'm off.
Do your thing. Let me not hold you any longer. Thank you, friend. Appreciate you, Yasmin. So interesting. I'm sure we'll talk more later in the week. That does it for us for this hour. We've got a lot more coverage picking up right now. We're coming on the air tonight with new charges against the top leaders of Hamas. The Justice Department indictment just unsealed in the last hour, charging them with crimes connected to those October 7th attacks in Israel. What it means for the war as thousands of people in Israel take to the streets to demand a ceasefire. Then, in the last couple of hours, a state of emergency in California where landslides are forcing people out of their homes. We'll take you there live. And a former top aide to New York's governor is pleading not guilty to charges she worked as a secret agent for China. The millions of dollars prosecutors say she made for helping Beijing, and how salted ducks are playing into the picture. Then, Russian President Vladimir Putin leaving his first international trip in more than a year unscathed, despite an ICC arrest warrant hanging over him. What it's telegraphing about Russia's next moves. Then, the mysterious fake ads popping up in Philadelphia, claiming Kamala Harris is the official candidate of the Eagles. Not the case. We've got more on the collision of football season, election season, and open season for misinformation later in the show. Hey, I'm Hallie, and tonight, with the Justice Department just filing new charges against Hamas leadership, all stemming from their alleged actions related to those October 7th terror attacks in Israel, a lot of dynamics at play. We're going to break them down. These charges filed against 6 men. Some of them are alive, some of them are dead, killed during this nearly year of war between Israel and Hamas. All of them currently or formerly playing super high-ranking roles in Hamas. The Attorney General here in the United States saying charges like these are only the beginning. Listen here.
The charges unsealed today are just one part of our effort to target every aspect of Hamas's operations. These actions will not be our last. The Justice Department has a long memory. We will pursue the terrorists responsible for murdering Americans and those who illegally provide them with material support for the rest of their lives.
This is just the latest U.S.-based move to try to combat Hamas while also trying to end the war on a separate track, with President Biden getting ready to offer both the Israeli government and Hamas militants this so-called take-it-or-leave-it deal in the days to come, maybe even the hours to come. It's all happening. It's on the ground in Israel. There is grief and anger over the deaths of 6 hostages, pushing, look at this, hundreds of thousands of Israelis into the streets to protest. These are some of the scenes coming out of Tel Aviv just late tonight in the last few hours. Thousands of people there, most of them demanding that the prime minister do what he needs to do to get those roughly 100 remaining hostages back home. The demonstrations, the diplomacy coming after those 6 hostages were found executed in a Hamas tunnel over the weekend. Netanyahu met with the families of the killed hostages earlier today, except for one, except for the widow of one victim who refused the meeting. Gives you an indication of the anger that some of these families and many Israelis are feeling right now. Our teams are covering all of it. NBC's Kelly O'Donnell posted up near the White House. But I want to start with Raf Sanchez, who's live for us in Tel Aviv. So, Raf, talk through the impact of this DOJ indictment. We talked about, obviously, some of the people indicted are not even alive. Some of them, obviously, members of Hamas leadership here. Is this more symbolic? Is this more pragmatic? What's the impact?
So, Hallie, there are 6 names on this indictment, and as you said, they represent the absolute top leadership of Hamas. Of those 6, 3 of them have been killed in the last couple of months by Israel. So take them, put them to the side. That leaves another 3. The main figure among those living indicted figures is Yahya Sinwar. He is the top leader of Hamas. He is believed to be hiding in a tunnel underneath Gaza. He is Israel's most wanted man. Their forces are searching for him day and night. And if anyone is going to find him in those tunnels beneath Han Yunis, beneath Rafah, it is much more likely to be Israeli commandos than it is U.S. law enforcement. That leaves 2 other figures. They are both political leaders based in Qatar, based in Lebanon. Now, realistically, it is those 2 that could potentially end up in American custody. You could imagine the United States putting pressure on Qatar, putting pressure on Lebanon to take these men into custody, to extradite them. The reality is these are figures who are far from the heart of Hamas's decision-making. They are more spokespeople than decision makers. So big picture, it is unlikely that this indictment on its own is going to have much impact on Hamas. But as you heard the Attorney General say, the U.S. sees this as only a first step in its pursuit of disrupting Hamas's operations. Hallie.
Can you talk through what we're seeing on the ground where you are in Israel, Raf? These huge protests, I think some of the biggest since the war began, hundreds of thousands of people in the streets. The question, of course, is, will this move Prime Minister Netanyahu off of his position at all? I know that that is partly unanswerable, but there hasn't been much indication that it's actually done that so far. Fair?
Fair. Very little indication so far. Hallie, Prime Minister Netanyahu got up last night. He gave this big kind of bravura press conference, and he essentially doubled down on his demands that Israeli forces remain in control of the Egypt-Gaza border. He says it is critical that they stay there to prevent Hamas from rearming. But it is a major stumbling block in these negotiations, and many of those protesters who you're seeing on your screen right now say, give up this demand. The top priority has to be bringing the hostages home. We heard a lot of heartbreak, we heard a lot of anger, and we heard deep, deep, deep frustration when we were out on the streets earlier from Israelis. We spoke to one woman whose cousin is being held in Gaza. She said it is just unbelievable that 11 months into this war, Israeli citizens are on the streets begging their own governments to make a deal to bring their loved ones home. Hallie.
Raf Sanchez, live for us in Tel Aviv tonight. I know it's been another busy stretch for you, Raf. Thank you for being with us. Kelly O'Donnell, I want to come to you now outside the White House. So we talked about that indictment now from the Department of Justice. We talked about that so-called take-it-or-leave-it ceasefire deal that the White House is apparently going to be pushing or presenting relatively soon here. Well, is the expectation here, Kelly, that either of these things could shake something loose when it comes to any meaningful movement on a possible ceasefire?
Well, certainly there is a view from the administration that they want to use every lever of power. So that is the piece from the DOJ, where when you have crimes like these, terrorism that resulted in deaths, conspiracy involved, alleged conspiracy, but presumably any scale of this kind involves planning and coordination. So you wouldn't want to leave any piece of your powerful structure unplayed. And so that's part of the DOJ strategy. Use levers of indictment for the various consequences, whether they be symbolic, pragmatic, or perhaps just putting down a marker. And then in terms of trying to put pressure, certainly the administration has been pressuring the Netanyahu government to move forward with accepting the terms and trying to, in some ways, put pressure on Hamas, which is harder to do in some respects. And so for the Biden administration, there is no question that trying to achieve some measure of resolution, as fragile as that might be, as limited as it might be, before the end of the president's term is not only time to his time in office, but just the anguish of nearly 1 year of this terrible war and all of the humanitarian complications, from the families that are suffering, missing their loved ones, to the people in Gaza who have been without supplies and have been subjected to just terrific destruction. So for the administration, anything they can do to put pressure on these parties to act is something they are using. Hallie?
Kelly O'Donnell, live for us here in Washington. Kelly, thank you. Let's take you out west, because tonight, California's governor has put in place a state of emergency after a series of landslides left some 200 homes without power. You had a lot of people that had to evacuate. The utility provider for this area cut off electricity and gas at some homes for 24 hours. For other places, it's indefinite. It's like now till who knows when. Because these landslides are so dangerous, the company says they're trying to avoid equipment from starting wildfires, which would basically be a disaster on top of a disaster. Our Morgan Chesky is there. He is joining us now. Give us a sense of the scene behind you, Morgan, what you're seeing and the impacts.
Yeah, Hallie, just in the last few minutes, we saw crews shut down access to this entire street in Rancho Palos Verdes. This is the community that really is sitting right between these hillsides and the ocean, which is just about a quarter mile away from where we're standing. We just spoke to a surveyor here. He says that the lateral movement on this ground is about 1.5 feet every month. You compound that over the last several months, and that is why we're seeing roads like this shut down and power shut off to at least 250 homes in and around this immediate area. And it's not just power that's proving to be an issue here. We spoke to one gentleman earlier today, Hallie. He no longer has power. His gas line has already been shut down. And he says water is intermittent because water pipes have been bursting as well. He has watched a chasm that back in February was about 1 foot wide, now become large enough to swallow an entire home just on the edge of his property. And he fears that it's only a matter of time before his home is one of several like those behind me that are suffering at the hands of this slow-moving disaster. He's calling on the state, he's calling on the county, local officials to do anything they can to help. But as of right now, they have that state of emergency issued by the governor, but no immediate action outside of these streets closing down and those evacuation warnings being issued. Hallie?
What does this mean for the people? Because there's the people who live in the houses, like the ones that are blocked off behind you here, because this is not like a hurricane, right, where there is a fairly finite period of time that you know the storm's coming through, you know it'll end, you know there's a period of cleanup. You can start to kind of plan out your life a little bit. This is a huge question mark, right, around timeline for when folks can feel safe and comfortable in the homes that they live in.
Yeah, Hallie, I think it's uncertainty to the nth degree for every person who lives in and around this area. There's nothing they can do short of reinforcing their home or lifting it off the ground and putting it on steel beams, which in some cases can cost just as much as the home is worth in order to avoid some of this constant movement. And that is why, as of right now, many, they don't know when their power is going to come back on. So they're just trying to be as vocal as possible with leaders to hopefully come in here and do something. We do know that some of the people have already left their homes. The gentleman we spoke with earlier today, he has just bought a lantern. He's buying those external batteries to run his phones off of. He's staying in what was his dream home, with certainly dreams at risk of being dashed here within the next few months if nothing happens and this landslide continues. Hallie?
Morgan Chesky live for us there in Southern California. Lots to watch for on that front. Morgan, thank you. Let's take it down south now, because Democrats today are looking to capitalize on an issue that they see as hugely mobilizing. With Election Day, just 60 plus days from now, and that is the issue. You see it on the bus here, reproductive freedom, reproductive rights. Why are you looking at a bus? Well, the Harris Walz campaign has one, and they're taking it through Florida. Interestingly, starting this big abortion access bus tour in the backyard, essentially, of Mar-a-Lago, just 10 miles from Donald Trump's home. Watch this.
Florida is such an epicenter of Donald Trump and what has happened here, and it is time to respond to him by saying we're going to elect Harris Walz, and we're also going to, in Florida, make clear that we're not going to subject women to extreme abortion bans.
It's coming as former President Trump is trying to make his own clarifications on his position on abortion rights, saying he will vote against a Florida amendment that would protect abortion rights in the state constitution after facing some backlash from members of his own party suggesting he'd support it. Marissa Parra is traveling with the Harris Walz campaign. She is down there in Florida, I think in Boynton Beach. They're now on to the next stop right in Jacksonville. They've got this whole thing because they're trying to put so much attention on this issue here, not just on key battlegrounds, but on key issues that they think could really mobilize their base to turn out and show up and vote, right?
Exactly. And I will point out, for those who don't already know, abortion rights are on the ballot here in the state of Florida. This is one of roughly a dozen states that already have abortion rights on the ballot or are considering having it be so. And so Florida is an interesting choice for a couple of reasons, Hallie. As we know, for a long time, Florida was considered a key swing state in every election. And so it has been very interesting to watch over the years that increasing Democratic erosion, if you will, between presidential elections and even midterms. And so it was very telling, Hallie, when that list of 7 key battleground states came out that the Harris Walz campaign team would be focusing on. Florida was not among them. So it was very striking that Florida was the first state to launch this campaign bus tour, the first 2, in fact, because as you just mentioned, it started here in Palm Beach County, and now that bus is making its way for the second stop in Jacksonville, Florida. And so something that I've heard over the last year that I've been reporting on Florida politics, something I've heard repeatedly from Florida Democrats on background, of course, is their frustration, feeling like they've been neglected by national Democrats, especially from the presidential campaigns. And what they said is that the lack of attention translates to a lack of donor funding. And so I think that there's a couple of factors at play here, Hallie. Maybe this is part of the Harris Walz effort to try to placate and show them, hey, this is an important state, even if it's not one of the 7 battleground states that they're focusing on, Hallie. But of course, also with Amendment 4 on the ballot. This is something that I asked Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz again about, and you're going to hear from her in just a moment. So for all of those people who say Florida's no longer a swing state, you say...
Don't sleep on Florida. We're going to creep up on you and surprise a lot of people on November 5th.
So, Hallie, to conclude here, what I heard from the Harris campaign teams here in Florida is this is the state where they saw the, quote, largest surge in volunteer signups after Harris threw her hat in the ring for November. So this is a state that they said, hey, don't sleep on Florida. They think that Democrats are back in play here.
Interesting. Don't sleep on Florida. They're definitely not sleeping on, let's say, Pennsylvania, the critical Commonwealth, a key battleground state as well. And that is where we just learned Vice President Harris will be hunkering down for some debate prep this week, right?
Exactly. And one of the key strategies she's going to be focusing on, remember that debate is scheduled for 1 week from now. And that key strategy she's trying to focus on is keeping her cool while getting under former President Donald Trump's skin. So this is something that we're told from sources that she's going to be focusing on Thursday in Pennsylvania. And this is coming from our Gabe Gutierrez and Michelle Sindor. But a lot is still being ironed out, Hallie, between now and next week, particularly when it comes to the rules. So a lot can change between now and then. But we know that her team busy prepping her right now.
Well, you can watch that debate, of course, live right here on NBC News Now and NBC News. Marissa Parr, thank you very much. Glad to have you there in Florida. Let's bring in Steve Kornacki now with a breakdown of some of those latest polls showing this very different race than 2 months ago and a very close one as well. And it's interesting because there's a former Obama advisor who described this race right now as a dogfight. We've been saying it for months. It is extremely competitive. It is very close. And there's kind of a question mark over how much we can extrapolate from polling. Right, Steve? Talk us through it.
Yeah, exactly, Hallie. I mean, you just have to think back to the last two presidential elections to keep that cautionary note in mind. But here's where the average of the national poll stands coming out of Labor Day. 3-point lead for Kamala Harris over Trump. Democrats obviously happy to have that advantage, also happy that it is better than it was when Joe Biden was the candidate. He actually trailed Trump basically all year. Republicans, though, can look at this and say, well, been there, done that. Trump down Labor Day nationally. Well, we saw that in 2016. Trump trailed Clinton by about 5 points at this point. Trump won, of course, in 2016. In 2020, 4 years ago, Trump trailed by close to 10 points against Joe Biden at this time. Did not come back to win, but came back to make it razor thin in the Electoral College. So then that becomes the question, of course, is the state-by-state battle you were just talking about there. And we'll call it up on the screen. And, yep, Florida painted red right now. Obviously, if Democrats were ever able to pull off a surprise there, it would shake everything up. There are some states, if Republicans could ever pull off a surprise, it would shake things up. But sticking with the core 7 battlegrounds, at least for right now, the simplest path when you look at the polling, they're tight in every state, but the best numbers for Harris tend to be in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. We have a lot of question marks about recently, but her clearest path would be simply to keep those states. They all went for Biden in 2020, to keep them blue. If she can do that, she's at exactly 270, the number she needs to win. Now, the Trump folks look at these 3 states, and the one they see particular opportunity in is Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania with 19 electoral votes. And this becomes Trump's most direct path. If Trump were able to flip Pennsylvania, you see what that would do to Harris's number. Now she'd need to get at least 2 from this set of Sunbelt states, but it would also open up this path for Trump. Pennsylvania, then North Carolina, which he already won in 2020. He's just trying to protect a state that he already won if he were to get that. And then Georgia. Georgia was less than 12,000 votes in 2020. It went for Trump in 2016. If he can claw Georgia back, along with holding on to North Carolina and flipping Pennsylvania, then he's the one, Hallie, who lands at exactly 270.
So what's so interesting here, Steve, is as we talk about rounding the corner, it's now after Labor Day. You've been through these presidential cycles. I've been through them. This is like the home stretch, right? It's not the final sprint. That's going to come in October, but we are getting into crunch time, basically. Worth remembering, though, that starting Friday, ballots are going out, right? Like we talk about voting being on Election Day. That's not actually the case because starting this week and then throughout the month, as you've explained to us, people are going to start casting their ballots already.
That's right. The first state where you're going to see that is North Carolina. On Friday, the mail ballots, the vote by mail ballots go out there. Now, in 2020, almost 1/5 of all the votes in North Carolina were cast by mail. That was the COVID year. The mail numbers were high in a lot of states. More typically, it's going to be about 5 to 10%. But that's nothing to sniff at, obviously, in a state as important as North Carolina. And by the end of the month, you're going to have a mail voting underway in Pennsylvania. You're going to have it underway in Michigan. Another place you're going to have it underway by the end of the month. You see this one here, Nebraska. Remember, there's that second congressional district around Omaha. They give them out by district. The Democrats won them then. There are combinations where that could be decisive.
Steve Kornacki, lots to follow. I guess we'll see you now and every day until Election Day. So thank you for being around. Let's take you to New York now, where a former top aide to the New York governor is now pleading not guilty after both she and her husband were arrested in just the last few hours for allegedly serving as a secret agent to the Chinese government. in a major scheme to make millions of dollars. This is Linda Sun. You see her here walking out of court. She's facing new accusations of using her high-ranking government jobs to illegally help the Chinese government. What did she get out of it? Well, allegedly, a whole lot of cash, tickets to things, jobs for her family, even salted ducks sent to her parents' home. The arrest comes after the FBI searched her $3.5 million Long Island home. We should note the governor's office tells NBC News today Sun was hired more than a decade ago, but fired last year, back in March 2023, for misconduct. I want to bring in Danny Cevallos to break it down for us. The allegations, there's a lot here. Unpack it a little bit, because we know at this point she's got a $1.5 million bond. She cannot right now talk to the Chinese government. What stands out to you in this case, and where does it go from here?
The allegations. I mean, if true, these are some brazen efforts to essentially act as an agent for the Chinese government in a high-ranking government job. I mean, this would be a crime, as alleged, if someone wasn't in the government. You can charge private individuals with acting as agents for foreign governments. It's more concerning when it's somebody who is high up in the executive chamber who's allegedly doing this. And some of the other key allegations that jump out to me are, of course, the communications allegedly kept surreptitious, the effort to conceal communications. Those are the kinds of things that, if the government can get a hold of them and introduce them as evidence, can be very damning, along with, of course, the gifts, including the salted ducks.
According to this indictment, Linda Sun blocked the Taiwanese government from speaking with New York officials and changed official government messaging to benefit China. If those things bear out to have truth, how does that impact the case here when it is, you know, these serious allegations that affected actual government business?
So thinking ahead to the way a defense attorney might approach this is that they would likely have to try to explain that all of this stuff that she allegedly did, blocking Taiwanese meetings or benefits and favoring the Chinese government, was her own independent choice or the choice of those above her in the chain of command. That's really one of very few avenues for the defense in this case. And of course, the government is going to introduce evidence of these benefits to China and the surreptitious communications allegedly, and of course, the benefits. Those three things there alone will allow a jury to draw an inference if they can introduce evidence of those allegations.
Danny Cevallos, thank you very much. Coming up here on the show, officials say at least 14 people are dead after huge landslides and flooding in the Philippines. We've got the race against time now to save others as we speak. Plus, how one man ended up trapped in a train car full of coal. How it happened, next. To Philadelphia now, where key swing state voters are dealing with just the latest round of misinformation heading into the election, because folks there, well, they're seeing these ads, right, like on bus stops. It's Kamala Harris in an Eagles helmet. Question is, would the Philadelphia Eagles really endorse any political candidate? Is that what's happening here? Is Kamala Harris the official candidate of the Eagles? Nope, she's not. The answer is no, because the team says these ads are fake. They're counterfeit, basically. They're made up. So how did they get there? And what does this mean now for an election season that is seeing misinformation to a degree like never before? Tremaine Lee in Philadelphia reports.
Tonight, ads plastered at bus stops across the city of brotherly love, showing Kamala Harris as the, quote, official candidate of the Philadelphia Eagles, pulled down. It's because they're fake, according to the team. Just the latest deception giving voters whiplash. A caricature of the vice president in an Eagles helmet, clutching a football, and in bold lettering, Kamala. The Eagles flew into action, posting on X that they were working to remove the, quote, counterfeit political ads. Adding to the confusion, the bogus ads did list a link to the official, nonpartisan website of the Philadelphia Eagles that encourages voter registration. A spokesperson for the Harris campaign told NBC News the campaign did not purchase these ads. Intersection Media, the company that runs and manages the advertisements on these bus shelters, says they were, quote, vandalized, and that occasionally people find a way to unlock the ad box.
We backing Camilla anyway, you know what I mean? I'm an Eagles fan. Yeah.
President Joe Biden scored 471,000 more votes than Donald Trump in 2020 here on the streets of Philly, where people seem to take the trickery in stride.
I don't see it problematic, but why would someone waste their time on putting Eagles logo on something that wasn't given permission?
But of course, Eagles Nation goes way beyond the borders of Philly into the purple suburbs and red rural towns of battleground Pennsylvania. Someone here papered over a fake ad with printouts of the Eagles' response. Just over 2 months to the election, voters are getting bombarded with fake information online and now in real life. Last month, former President Trump shared AI-generated images on Truth Social showing one real and multiple fake Swifties for Trump. Taylor Swift has yet to endorse a candidate. Many athletes historically have been shy about getting into politics. As Michael Jordan famously quipped, Republicans buy sneakers too, later saying he never thought of himself as an activist.
What's up, everybody? Stephen Curry here.
But other players have taken a stand this cycle, with Steph Curry and Coach Steve Kerr at the DNC. UFC President Dana White, a prominent Trump supporter, was at the RNC, but some feel election talk should stay on the sidelines.
I don't feel like there should be much politics in sports, you know what I mean?
Tremaine is joining us now from Philadelphia. And the hard thing about anything similar to this, Tremaine, right, regardless of, you know, the candidate or the format, somebody's walking by a bus stop and sees an ad for something that looks real. How are they supposed to know it's not? I mean, is this now a moment where folks are just going to need to be Googling, like, everything to find out if it's legit or not? It's a difficult moment, it seems like, for some folks.
Hallie, I'll tell you what, for those of us who engage with political material routinely, it can be difficult to decipher what is real and what is fiction, let alone now you have AI, you have social media, and now you have ads like this confusing people in spaces where they would expect truthful information. But again, let's not forget how folks have been targeted in recent news cycles, revealing just how, I don't want to say gullible folks are, but how easy it is to sway us. And so folks need not just disconnect with all the swirl around them. That may be objectively dangerous for society. If people just, you know, check out and say, there's too much going on, I can't figure out truth from fiction, you know, what do we do?
Tremaine there, live in front of the link. I promise I will not ask you about the Eagles season opener, but we'll get into that at a later date. Tremaine, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, pretty disturbing scene caught on camera in Turkey, showing 2 U.S. Marines being assaulted by apparently a nationalist mob. Look at this. You see one attacker even putting a bag over the head of one of the Marines. There's others who are chanting in the video, "Yankee, go home." The Navy says other Marines nearby intervened and that nobody was hurt. Local security forces say 15 people have been detained. Number 2, former President Trump set to enter a not guilty plea in that new election interference indictment against him. He's also waiving the right to be present at his arraignment. The new plea comes just a week after special counsel Jack Smith filed that superseding indictment against Mr. Trump for his push to overturn the legitimate results of the 2020 election. Number 3, emergency crews in Massachusetts. Look at this, freeing a worker who was stuck waist deep in a train car full of coal. So, like, you're looking at this, rescuers had to dig out a bunch of the coal before getting him out just because it was so heavy. Fortunately, fire officials say this guy was not seriously hurt. That's a good thing. Number 4, pro-Palestinian protests starting back up today at Columbia University as students get back to class. You can see it here with one statue covered in red paint on campus. Remember at the end of the spring semester, there were a bunch of protests and demonstrations at Columbia and at college protests, or college campuses, I should say, coast to coast. Organizers here say they're not going to stop until Columbia cuts ties with companies linked to Israel. Number 5, officials in Tennessee arresting one of the stars of the reality show 1,000-Pound Sisters at a local zoo. Police say somebody had allegedly been bitten by a camel. It's not clear who, but police say they smelled something suspicious coming from Amy Slayton Halterman's car. Now she's facing several charges, including drug possession and child endangerment. She did not immediately respond to NBC's request for comment. Let's take you to Arizona now, where Phoenix is now marking, ready for this milestone, 100 days in a row of 100-degree heat or higher. It is brutal, with folks heading to cooling centers or heading to water stations, anywhere, anything they can do to try to get a break from all this heat. It's officially, obviously, the hottest summer on record there, with an average daily high of 99 degrees. That is not just uncomfortable. That is dangerous, even deadly. Maricopa County alone reporting 177 people died of heat-related causes this summer. a number that'll probably go up as the county investigates hundreds more deaths. Meteorologist Bill Cairns is joining us now. Listen, we understand that the Southwest is hot. Like, that's just table stakes, right, when you're talking about this region. But we're talking about heat that started to hit 100 before Memorial Day. And now here we are after Labor Day. There has not been a break for these people.
And that's the case. Usually they get a couple breaks. They do get a monsoon season, this time of year, especially the late summer. You expect maybe 1 or 2 days at least for it to rain, be a little bit cooler. But that just hasn't happened this year. And so every single day we're just checking them off one after another. And, the 98.9, we rounded up to 99, was by far the hottest summer average temperature. The next hottest, by the way, last year, was 97. So we had a 2-degree set. So that's significant in the Phoenix area. And it looks like we're going to go well above 100 too. I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll get up there 110. And by the way, the previous record was about 80 days in a row. So we're at 105 at Sky Harbor Airport currently. Other areas are starting to warm up too. Yuma, Vegas, here at 97. You were above 100 earlier today. And we still have excessive heat warnings. This is the time of year everyone's like, all right, just give me a break. Summer's ending. Just bring on some cooler air. Give us, it's been a hot, brutal summer. And about 45 million people still have to endure this. Tomorrow it's going to be 108 in Phoenix. And then the day after that, it's going to be about 112. And Hallie, you guessed it, it just keeps going all the way through the weekend.
Bill Cairns, lots to watch on that front. Thank you, friend. Yeah. When we come back, a pretty scary rescue caught on camera in Australia. Why it took crews 24 hours to reach 2 people when their boat started taking on water. NBC News covers hundreds of international stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our teams around the world have done it for you. Here's a look at what they're watching in a segment we call The Global. Out of the Philippines, a massive tropical storm leaves at least 14 people dead after serious landslides. Look at this. This is some of the video we were getting at of people being rescued. Officials called for storm warnings in a big part of the country in the north, where rivers are very swollen. Out of Russia, President Vladimir Putin is back there tonight after getting a red carpet welcome during a visit to Mongolia. A newsworthy visit because Mongolia is an ICC member country, meaning that Mongolia ignored calls to arrest Putin for alleged war crimes under the International Criminal Court related to the war in Ukraine. This was Putin's first trip to an ICC member nation since it issued that arrest warrant last year. And off of the coast of Australia, marine officials rescuing 2 people from a yacht after they were stranded for nearly 24 hours. They say the rescue operation had to be paused overnight because of really bad conditions, like 20-foot waves and high winds. The yacht had a problem. Obviously, look at this. It was taking on water. Police say the couple they rescued is doing just fine. They're not hurt. So tonight's original now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tonight we're looking at scrutiny that the world's biggest YouTube star is facing over safety conditions at his latest reality competition. We're talking about Mr. Beast. Although you probably know him. Well, you know him as Mr. Beast. His real name is Jimmy Donaldson. He's got a record 312 million subscribers. His videos feature sometimes dangerous stunts and really lavish giveaways. We're talking big money, 7 figures, millions of dollars. But some are now sounding the alarm after a chaotic shoot. In a TV and streaming exclusive, our Chloe Melas speaks with another YouTube star who's trying to expose what she says is behind the scenes of Mr. Beast's empire.
So this is your new studio.
Rosanna Pansino, one of YouTube's original and most influential content creators, the host of a popular baking show.
And now we're going to do this to the rest of our donuts.
Is now speaking out against the platform's biggest star.
Jimmy is not the same person that he is on camera as he is off camera.
Pansino met Mr. Beast, whose real name is Jimmy Donaldson, about 5 years ago.
I have a heart for philanthropy and giving back, and that's how he presented himself, as a good guy who loves to do charity and likes to make big, fun, silly YouTube videos.
And whichever one of these 456 people survives the longest wins 456 grand.
Pansino even went into business with Donaldson, though the ventures failed. But she says everything changed after she appeared on Mr. Beast's 2021 reality competition show, The Creator Games.
Man, the perfect hiding place.
She was unfairly edited, she says, to make it seem like she performed worse than she had.
Yeah, you can be like cyberbullied if I say anything that's not positive about Mr. Beast.
And when Pansino made that accusation on the pop culture podcast Just Trish last October, she says the backlash from some of Mr. Beast's fans was frightening.
I received very serious, scary death threats.
That sounds
terrifying.
Yeah, I've been online for a long time, so a little cyberbullying, the negative comments, I'm used to handling that mentally, but not at this magnitude. I was so scared. I thought I was having a heart attack. The death threats were very specific. They were very targeted.
In spite of that, in July, Pansino went public again, this time on TikTok.
I wanted to keep you guys updated on what I've been hearing about Mr. Beast's Beast Games.
She says that she's created a safe space for contestants to share their experience on Donaldson's new reality competition series. When Amazon MGM announced that series, the Beast Games was billed as the biggest reality competition series ever. The cash prize, $5 million.
I feel like I've become an advocate. I can't in good conscience do nothing.
How many people have reached out to you so far, roughly?
Right now, it's a little over 200.
Could you tell me about some of the allegations?
They didn't have access to their medication. In a lot of these situations, it was life-saving medication.
William, who asked us to call him only by his first name because he fears online backlash, showed up to what he thought was the Beast Games. But it turned out to be a multi-day casting call for the show in Las Vegas.
One girl in our group, she did need her epilepsy medication, and she did not get it. She had a hard time fighting for it.
And that's not all.
We had finally gotten access to food after about 10 hours, and I witnessed a male just collapse right in front of me, and he was convulsing.
NBC News spoke to 5 other former contestants who asked to remain anonymous because they feared retaliation. They said there wasn't enough food and that they witnessed medics responding to a contestant who appeared to pass out. In August, the New York Times reported that more than a dozen unnamed participants told them that they had not received adequate food or medical care, and that some competitors had suffered injuries from the physical challenges, with some even leaving the competition arena on stretchers.
I think that the injuries are just appalling because they're injuries that could easily be avoided.
What types of injuries are you hearing about?
I heard people got trampled.
During that first game, I got trampled. Every line had a group of people at the back that were just getting trampled, and I watched a woman get knocked out cold.
Several contestants were hospitalized during the Beast Games promo shoot, according to NBC's Las Vegas affiliate KSNV, which cited multiple anonymous contestants. For his part, Williams says he would still compete again, and that he also saw Donaldson upset, trying to get contestants food and water.
He did try to do what he can. I do feel people are painting it that he did this maliciously, but at the end of the day, I feel everybody was just woefully unprepared.
In a statement to NBC News, a spokesperson for Mr. Beast said that the promo shoot involving over 2,000 participants was, quote, unfortunately complicated by a global technology outage, extreme weather, and other unexpected logistical and communications issues, which we are currently reviewing. The spokesperson added that virtually all of those invited to the filming of the Beast Games in Toronto enthusiastically accepted our invitation, and that they have taken steps to ensure that we learn from this experience. Amazon MGM Studios did not respond to a request for comment.
What would you say to people who might say, well, it sounds like that, business deal fell apart. You're doing this to elevate your own profile.
I understand that perspective. I really do. But I really encourage those people to look at the bigger picture, because what he's doing is not happening in a vacuum. It's happening to a ton of people.
For the people watching who say that those that competed in the Beast Games, they were paid and they signed contracts and they knew that there were risks involved.
On any TV show, especially a competition show, there's always risk that somebody's going to accidentally get hurt. I think that the difference here is an abuse of power. I think it's wrong to dangle this huge prize money, a $5 million carrot, in front of people's faces who really need it and take advantage. I don't think it's okay to actually shoot shows that are like the Hunger Games.
Chloe Malas is joining us now. And Chloe, has Mr. Beast's team reached out to contestants directly at all? Do we know?
Hey there, Hallie. Well, I spoke to Mr. Beast's spokesperson who said that they actually have communicated directly with 97% of those 2,000 people who attended that shoot in Las Vegas and that they've asked for feedback. The spokesperson also added that Jimmy Donaldson has been very philanthropic over the course of his career, including giving more than $5 million in supplies to Ukrainian refugees. They also talked about how he powered a rural Zambian village with solar energy. And, he's rebuilt 12 homes in South Africa
for over 100 orphan children. So, look, Hallie, I mean, he has made a huge name for himself with these stunts and with these lavish giveaways and with his charitable giving. But these are some very serious allegations that these contestants, they felt comfortable speaking to NBC News, anonymously. They're afraid of public backlash. And obviously, Rosanna Pansino, she's a huge star. And for her to come out and do this exclusive interview with us, it took her a lot of courage as well. But again, Mr. Beast's team, they are denying these allegations.
Chloe Malas, thank you so much for bringing us that NBC News exclusive right here first on this show. Thanks, Chloe. Coming up.
Thank you.
Why teachers at one Virginia high school say a plan to scrap cell phones in classrooms cannot come soon enough. We'll tell you what change they're seeing in students and why. Coming up. With the school year really getting started this week in a lot of places around the country, more and more school districts are starting off the year with bans or some real restrictions on cell phones in class. Down in Virginia, schools there are starting up under an executive order from the governor that tells schools you got to come up with a plan to get phones out of class by next year. Our Kate Snow went down to Virginia to ask teachers how they're feeling about this. Here's the spoiler. They're telling her it cannot come soon enough. Watch.
At high schools across the country this fall, when the bell rings to end class, it's not the noisy, chaotic scene we may remember.
I'll watch everyone kind of silently stand beyond their phone, immediately have their AirPods in, and just kind of walk out quietly.
We sat down with Hallie, instructional lead and advanced placement coordinator at Yorktown High School in Arlington, Virginia, along with English teacher Troy Olson and social studies teachers Ryan Zito and Elizabeth Kadat.
How many of you have had to talk to students every single day about a device issue?
Because sometimes they don't even register that they have it out. It's just so instinctual.
Do you get tired of having to watch for phones?
Yeah, it's not what we went to school for. It's not what I want to do. I want to teach.
How often do you see kids with their phones out?
Every day, constantly.
Every period?
Every period. It's half of your instructional time.
If I have to constantly remind you about your phone, that is breaking down my ability to connect with you.
What about earphones, AirPods?
They're just so easy.
One in, one's in the case.
What are they listening to? Music?
Even if they're not listening to anything, they don't realize that that comes across as rude or disrespectful.
A Pew Research survey last year found 72% of U.S. high school teachers say cell phone distraction is a major problem in the classroom. As of this fall, at least 11 states have moved to ban or restrict cell phone use in public school classrooms. Virginia is one of them. In Arlington, a new policy this fall says high school students cannot use phones during all instructional periods.
What do you think about high schoolers not being able to have their phone on during class?
Love it.
I mean, I think it's great.
I think it'd be difficult to enforce, but I think it would be helpful.
We need buy-in not just from teachers, but from the families as well.
They're all concerned about the long-term impact phones are having on learning.
If devices didn't exist and students were picking up books instead of Instagram reels, maybe they would be reading and building a level of vocabulary that we're not seeing when they walk into our environment.
We do kind of a brief survey of, on average, how much do we spend on our phone a day? And roughly our class average is about 7 hours.
In his 7 years of teaching, Mr. Olson says students' attention spans have changed.
They can't focus on something that isn't, 60 seconds or less. It's got to be fast and quick and punchy.
Many of them, I find in my AP classes, want to engage with the tasks that I'm giving them, but need so much more support to a degree that students in the past just didn't seem to need.
They do see positives of phones. Students socialize and find community on their devices, and ultimately, they're realistic.
Phones aren't going to go away. Finding ways to educate kids around proper use and responsible use may be better.
Is joining us now. And Kate, we're so glad to have you with us. Kate, we're glad to have you with us here. It's been so interesting to look at that and to listen to this conversation because you heard one of the teachers say it. She doesn't want to be the phone police. She didn't get into this job to be like sitting in the classroom telling people to put away their phones. Yeah. There is this question of enforcement, and there's this question, too, of what parents are going to do? Like, how do parents support this at home and how they feel about it?
Yeah, and you heard Ryan say we need family buy-in.
Yeah.
But what was interesting, Hallie, is all of them said to me, parents in general so far have been really supportive. So when they call a parent and say, you know, your son's been or your daughter's been on their phone, I'm taking it away, the parents are like, oh my gosh, thank you for telling me. That's what they said they've generally experienced. As far as enforcement goes, it really is still going to be up to the teachers, at least where we were in Arlington, Virginia. You know, they were saying to me, that's how it was last year, and now that they have this new policy, they're the ones that are going to have to enforce. So if they see someone with a phone during instructional period, they're going to have to call the person out, take the phone away.
Yeah.
They can elevate it to an administrator, but there are only 6 administrators in that high school for 2,300 students. So there's not always going to be a principal around to help. So they're concerned that it is still going to kind of fall on the teachers to be, as you said, the phone police.
Yeah. Kate Snow, it is definitely an issue that is not going away anytime soon because, you know, these things, I mean, kids are glued to them, and frankly, so are their adults. Yeah. Kate Snow, thank you very much. Really appreciate that. Of course, you can see much more of Kate every day on NBC News Daily alongside Zincle Esamaw. That's every day on the NBC News Network where you are from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern and right here on NBC News Now. When we come back, a big day, a huge day for U.S. men and women at the U.S. Open today. We'll talk through the big wins and what's ahead tonight when we take you live to Flushing Meadows right after the break. So, U.S. Open, the American men are trying to win a Grand Slam tournament for the first time in more than 20 years. And guess what? They've got a shot. Taylor Fritz is in the semis this afternoon after that upset win. So all eyes are on tonight when Frances Tiafoe, a.k.a. Big Foe, hits the court to try to join him there. Over on the women's side, American Emma Navarro claimed her spot in the singles semi, winning a dramatic match just a couple days after knocking out defending champ Coco Gauff. All of this has been playing out in front of huge crowds. Last week saw an average of around 75,000 fans every day. According to the New York Times, that is a record. Yasmin Vasugian is joining us now. She is fitted up. Oh, where's your hat? You had a hat all day on today. Yeah,
I got it.
Your U.S. Open hat.
I know.
You had a drink.
Give me my hat.
Excuse me, it's 5 p.m., girlfriend. What are you doing?
I
Let's
got
do
the
it.
drink, girl. Don't you worry about it. I got the hat.
Love you.
The drink.
Love this gig for you. Love everything about it.
I was going to bring my props in later. But, of course, you're blowing my spot up a little early, so I'll bring it in now.
I just was watching you. I saw you in a show earlier, and I was like, oh, my God, when she gets to 6 p.m., we're going to be living our absolute best life. Because part of what's so interesting, Yasmin, is like all these upsets. Like, it's a super unpredictable tournament, and people are super tuning into it, right?
Yeah. By the way, you got to be 21 and older to drink this. It is after 5, everybody. That is why I'm sipping it, and I will finish this one. The other one, FYI, I did not finish. It was just a prop for the show a little bit earlier, but now I'm going to finish this one. Okay, let's talk upsets, because I was here, Hal, for all of it. What an incredibly exciting day, right? We had Taylor Fritz, 4 sets, winning, incredible. 2 tiebreakers, by the way, as well. A nail biter to the very end. The energy inside the stadium was electric, to say the least. Emma Navarro winning in 2 sets. Hal, the second set, it was touch and go for a moment. There's a lot of folks that were worried about whether or not it was going to go into a 3rd set. She pulled it out. So you got 2 Americans already going into the semis. Emma, by the way, has never been in a semifinal. Taylor Fritz has never been in a semifinal as well. And then you talk about Big Foe, right? That's my man. That's the guy that I'm really rooting for tonight. That's going to be the big match in center court behind me. He's got the story of all stories, right? Grew up in a tennis center. His dad was a custodian, grew up playing alongside his brother, learning to play tennis. And then here he is at the U.S. Open. He's only been to 1 semi before. This could be the 2nd one. He's up against somewhat of a veteran, 33 years of age, who's been to 3 semis before, but not since 2019. So he's got age on his side, but it's all time will tell as we wait for tonight's match.
We talked about, I mean, you are one of the huge, one single person of the thousands and thousands of people that are showing up at Flushing Meadows. I was looking behind you. Can this facility, can these grounds handle it? That many people?
I mean, I have to tell you, it is incredibly crowded, averaging over 70,000 people every single day, more so than we've ever seen at the U.S. Open up until now. And obviously, as the day has gone on, right, it's kind of back to school, unofficial end of summer. Folks are back to school, back to work today, but certainly showing up for this night match. I spoke to some people in the area behind me in front of center court. Let's take a listen to some of what they had to say.
It's tremendous. Everybody's going to this. This is a big summer thing to do.
I think there's just an increased interest in tennis. You know, I think people started to play tennis. More people started to play during the pandemic. You hate to see some people lose, but you're like, this is the next generation coming up. So it's very exciting.
And it's all about the next generation, right? Because Djokovic, Alcaraz, Goff, Osaka, they're all out. So it really is anyone's title to take, Hal.
Super interesting. You're making me get psyched about watching tennis, Yasmin. Are you officially off the clock? Like, is this it? Are we your last live shot for the night? Go enjoy.
I'm off. I'm off, love. I'm
Do
off.
your thing. Let me not hold you any longer. Thank you, friend. Appreciate you, Yasmin. So interesting. I'm sure we'll talk more later in the week. That does it for us for this hour. We've got a lot more coverage picking up right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.